Don't you just love it when you play a prank on a friend and it works perfectly? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you 10 movies where a prank goes wrong. Hi guys, my name's Barry and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be discussing 10 horror movies where a prank goes wrong. Now, I know that you're probably thinking it's coming up to April Fool's, and I bet April Fool's Day from 1986 is going to be on this list. Well, in actual fact, it's not going to be on this list because April Fool's Day from 1986 is a movie where the prank works well. So that's obviously not going to be on this list. So this list only consists of pranks that are attempted but go awfully wrong. Killer Party from 1986 is a movie that tries to blend slasher horror with goofy college comedy and ended up face planting somewhere in between. The prank in question, a classic sorority hazing setup, lure a pledge into a creepy old house under the guise of some dumb initiation ritual, give her a good scare and laugh about it over cheap beer later. Simple, right? Well, not when your haunted house happens to be actually haunted. Things take a nosedive when demonic possession crashes the party, turning the whole thing from a harmless gag into some supernatural bloodbath. Instead of a few nervous screams and some light-hearted embarrassment, the prank delivers full-on demonic carnage, and before you know it, bodies are piling up faster than the film's budget allowed for decent special effects. In Hell Night from 1981, the whole mess kicks off because a bunch of college kids decide it's a brilliant idea to haze their new pledges by locking them in Garth Manor. This is a decrepit old house with a nasty backstory involving a twisted family massacre. Classic frat boy antics, right? Well, turns out their prank, filled with spooky noises, fake ghosts and cheap scares, takes a sharp left turn into a nightmare territory when it turns out someone really is still lurking in the house. Spoiler alert, it's not Casper, the friendly ghost. It's the deranged killer who's been chilling there for years and he's not too happy about the uninvited guests. Moral of the story? Maybe don't prank people by locking them in murder houses. The Burning from 1981 kicks off with one of the most catastrophically stupid pranks in horror movie history. A bunch of dim-witted campers decided it'd be hilarious to scare the life out of their creepy caretaker Cropsy. They sneak into his cabin in the dead of night and they leave a rotten, candlelit skull by his bed because, you know, kids will be kids. But surprise, surprise, things don't go according to plan. Cropsy wakes up in sheer terror, knocks the skull over, and wouldn't you know it, he sets himself on fire and the whole cabin goes on fire. The guy bursts out of the shack, flailing around like a human torch before diving into a nearby river where he's left horrifically burned and swearing bloody vengeance. And honestly, can you blame him? Carrie from 1976 is a movie that taught us all an important lesson. If you dump a bucket of pig's blood on the quiet girl at prom, you might just kickstart the apocalypse. What was supposed to be a cruel but relatively harmless prank, at least in the eyes of its architects, turned into a blood-soaked catastrophe where the titular character, Carrie White, already teetering on the edge thanks to a lifetime of bullying and unhinged religious nutcase of a mother, finally snapped. And by snapped, I mean she went full telekinetic death goddess on the entire senior class. The moment the blood hit her, something inside her broke and the humiliation quickly turned to horror as the door slammed shut, fire hoses went rogue, and a gymnasium full of prom goers got turned into charred corpses and human wreckage. Turns out, screwing with a girl who has psychic powers and a deep-seated trauma isn't the smartest idea. Sorority Row from 2009 is a film that asks, what if you took a standard slasher setup, injected it with a mean girl energy, and then dialed the stupidity up to 11. The whole mess kicks off with a prank so catastrophically idiotic that it makes Final Destination deaths look like carefully considered life choices. The plan was to fake the death of a sorority sister by pretending to overdose her with roofies, panic convincingly, and take her corpse out to an abandoned steel mill because, you know, comedy. But here's the twist. one of the idiots decides to really sell the gag by shoving a tire iron through the girl's chest, not realising she was pretty much still alive. Suddenly, their harmless joke escalates into actual murder, and rather than calling the police like a normal human being, they agree to dump the body and take their secret to their grave. If slasher movies have taught us anything, it's that making the worst possible decision at every opportunity is the best way to survive until it isn't. The Initiation from 1984 is about a group of pledges who break into a department store overnight for some good old-fashioned fun. What could possibly go wrong? Well, as it turns out, everything. What starts as a harmless test of courage quickly derails into a blood-soaked nightmare when a mass killer decides to crash the party. Instead of giggling at mannequins and swiping a few overpriced sweaters, the students find themselves being hunted down one by one. The whole thing goes from harmless fun to we should have stayed in the dorms in record time, proving that yet again breaking and entering for the sake of Greek life is never a good idea, especially when there's a deranged murderer waiting in the wings. In Urban Legend in 1998, there's a whole host of pranks that actually go pretty well, but one of the pranks that go wrong is the gang high beam initiation. In the movie, Brenda's boyfriend gets caught up in this idiotic stunt where Natalie and Michelle Mancini drive around at night with their headlights off, waiting for some poor sap to flash their high beams at them. Then, as the legend goes, they're supposed to chase them down and kill them. Except, plot twist, this isn't a gang initiation at all, it's a joke. Now, because Brenda's boyfriend was killed by accident, she's out for revenge, killing people in the style of urban legends. In Trick or Treat from 2007, a bunch of kids decided it would be a real hoot to pull a sick little prank involving the infamous school bus massacre legend. The plan was to dress up like the dead kids, lure the class outcast Rhonda to the old rocky quarry and scare the living hell out of her. Sounds like a good plan, right? Well, not so much. Because the problem with scaring people half to death in a dark, creepy place filled with sharp rocks and a sheer drop is that sometimes the prank stops being funny real fast. And wouldn't you know it, Rhonda, being the only one with the actual survival instincts, ends up locking the little pranksters out when the real undead school bus victims show up. This is a cautionary tale about why you don't mess around with ghost stories that might actually be true. In Jawbreaker from 1999, what starts as a high school prank fit for the Teens Queens highlight reel quickly spirals into a full-blown disaster of Mean Girls meets CSI. The plan? A harmless birthday kidnapping to give the birthday girl, Liz, a morning surprise. So what was the execution? Well, let's just say it makes Weekend at Bernie's look like a well thought out scheme. The self-proclaimed It girls, Courtney, Julie and Marcy, shove a jawbreaker into Liz's mouth to keep her quiet, toss her in the trunk and drive off giggling like it's just another Friday. But surprise, surprise, when they pop the trunk for the big reveal, Liz isn't gasping in shock. She's not even gasping at all, because in their infinite wisdom, they forgot that stuffing a giant piece of candy down someone's throat might just actually be a choking hazard. So now, instead of the fun-loving birthday prank they envisioned, they've got a full-blown corpse cleanup on their hands. Joyride from 2001 is a movie that starts off as a fun little road trip and quickly turns into Mad Max with an 18-wheeler. The film, led by Paul Walker in full charming bro mode, decides it would be hilarious to screw with a random trucker over CB radio, albeit the idea was his brother's. Using the alias Candy Cane, they lure in a lonely unseen driver called Rusty Nail with a promise of a seductive motel rendezvous. Unfortunately, Rusty Nail is not the kind of guy who takes rejection well. He's the kind of guy who responds with being pranked by ripping someone's jaw clean off. He then decides to play a high stakes game of cat and mouse across the highways of America. What starts as a dumb teenage joke escalates into pure nightmare fuel as Rusty Nail proves that he's not only some weirdo on the radio, but a full-fledged horror villain with a semi-truck and a serious vendetta. So that is 10 horror movies where the prank goes wrong. Guys, what do you think of those ones? And also, is there any other horror movies out there where characters play a prank on each other and it just doesn't work and it goes wrong? As always, leave your comments down below, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon.
Meeting adjourned.
I'll be right back.
What are you waiting for, huh?
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat?
Put in the back seat!